Countdown over. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. So happy to be here with you again, Amber and Wen. Really happy to be with you guys. Today's episode, I'm excited to present about because we are talking about FOMO. FOMO, for those of you who don't know, is fear of missing out. And it's a nasty little bugger. But I've never really heard particularly good advice other than just don't have FOMO, it's bad. And so I worked really, really hard in the book on a section. So this is what we're talking about today is an excerpt from a section of the book. And the lesson, for those of you who don't know, this book is about timeless lessons. And so the timeless lesson's name is easy. And the entire idea behind that is in almost every case, intelligent people try to solve hard problems, but there's usually a much easier problem to solve, and they can just ignore the hard problem and find the easier problem and solve that instead. And so we're going to talk about that a lot, but I want to start with this idea of FOMO, and then we'll continue on into more of this theme of easy with some examples and that. And the examples come from everything from hiring staff to referrals to getting clients and getting customers and stuff. So FOMO. This is the topic. What do you guys think? Initial reactions to the topic today?
I'm excited because that sounds like me. Got to know all the things, do all the things. Don't want to miss out on something.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
Good. Thank you. Glad I can meet your optimism on this. So, as always, I'm going to start with a quick little story. So, the famous American military commander and president, Dwight Eisenhower, once said that a military genius is the man who can do the average thing when everybody else is losing their mind. Missing what looks like a can't miss opportunity, I think, is perfectly fine. Because there's going to be more. Fear of missing out, this idea of FOMO, though, it looks like ambition, but often results in recklessness. And that's the central theme. It appears like you are being ambitious, but it results in you being reckless. There's always going to be somebody who will appear to be more successful than you. I don't think that that's a bad thing. I think that removing FOMO leads to long-term thinking and a focus on your actual own goals. It helps you avoid getting sucked into distracting fly-by-night stuff. So Morgan Housel, one of my favorite people, author of The Psychology of Money, he once said, being immune to the siren song of other people's success, especially when that success is sudden and extreme and caused by factors out of their control, is so powerful that it's practically impossible to do well without it over time. I think that's a pretty strong statement, but I agree. A perceived missed opportunity can lead to jealousy of others who took advantage when you didn't. Regret that you missed out in the short term is a really hard pill to swallow. I think it's a very useful reminder that you're going to forget about it pretty soon. There's a tale that includes a rabbit who was one day making fun of a tortoise for being so slow. The rabbit said, "Do you ever get anywhere?" "Yes," replied the tortoise, "and I get there sooner than you think. I'll run you a race and prove it." This is, of course, the famous Aesop's fable, The Tortoise and the Hare. And we all know how it ends. The rabbit jumps out to an early lead. He falls asleep. The tortoise doesn't get distracted, keeps up a constant pace, passes the sleeping rabbit, and wins the race at the end. Some people think that they're smarter than the rest of us, don't they? They're always looking for the best tricks and hacks and gimmicks to get ahead. And at any one time, it'll appear that they're ahead, but it's not one person that's ahead all of the time. What it is, it's the collective them. It's too hard to constantly find the best way to do something. So, over time, fixing my typos in the book as I read this. Over time, I actually have a bunch of edits and I haven't had time to input them yet because I took a nap. So Not today. Yesterday. Yesterday I took a hell of a nap. Today I didn't take a nap. Over time, each rabbit makes mistakes and or gets burned out by constantly having to reinvent themselves. They jump out to a lead, but then they get distracted and they lose the long-term game. Chasing gimmicks, it's so tantalizing that they're always replaced by a new rabbit. The reason why FOMO is such a nasty little emotion is because there's always somebody new to compare yourself to. But each individual, if you pay attention and hang around long enough, doesn't stay ahead for very long. It's just the collective them. Shane Parrish, the founder of Farnham Street, and he hosts a podcast called The Knowledge Project as well. I have a funny story about him, actually. It's maybe a story for another day, but he wanted to buy the PTDC a while back. Shane Parrish, the founder of Farnham Street, great guy, wrote that avoiding stupidity is easier than seeking brilliance. 90% of success can be boiled down to consistently taking the simple and obvious action for an uncommonly long period of time without convincing yourself that you're smarter than you are. A big theme of today is actually admitting that we're amateurs. And I think that that's a very powerful thing to admit. We'll get into that a little bit more. You become the obvious choice by having the formidable strength to resist temptation in the way of trends, algorithm hacks, and here today, gone tomorrow tactics. And you all know this shit when you see it, don't you? You see these things, you're like, oh my God, this is... Somebody sent me a message the other day. God, I wish that I remembered the response. But I don't know, I joked in a comment back to him something about how my content on Instagram is so ugly. And he's like, oh, a lot of my friends are doing what you're doing right now, but they're formatting it as a reel and they're putting it up as a reel on Instagram, and that's doing better in the algorithm. And I just responded to him and I was like, yeah, I mean, that might work better today. I don't know. If it's working for them, that's great. Personally, I just have decided that I don't want to live my life feeling like I have to constantly change or chase after stuff that some privatized for-profit social media company from Silicon Valley has decided is the best way to addict its consumers to it. Like, that's just not how I want to live my life. And so this stuff is always going to exist. And I think over the long term, it's easier to ignore them. Because I think that there's actually 3 ways to gain an advantage in this world. There's only 3 ways. You can be luckier, you can be smarter, or you can be more patient. And if you want guaranteed success, the easiest and the most reliable option is the third, is patience. It's a mistake to try and force things to happen faster than what's required. You'll find yourself doing a lot and benefiting a little and constantly starting over. Or as Warren Buffett once said, you can't make a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. It's a good line, right?
It's a gem, Warren. Player.
You just picture him like 90 years old sitting there reading financial reports, and he's just like, this is going in the next annual report.
Player. Oh, seeing him totally differently now.
Okay. Any reactions to that kind of stuff? I'm going to go deeper into the idea of easy now, which goes into FOMO, but I wanted to start with the FOMO section.
Sounds a lot like the Shomo No, John. That's all I'm hearing. You're saying FOMO, I'm saying Shomo No. I know you can't put it in the book, but that's all right. I'll write it.
You gotta say what that is again, because I remember it being really funny, but I kind of forgot what it was.
Yeah, Shomo No applies to anything that you're reaching for that's outside of what's pretty much the easiest, lowest hanging fruit. It could be dates, it could be money. Mess up your for show money, try to get some more money, end up with no money. Messing up your for show girlfriend, trying to get some more girlfriends, end up with no girlfriends. Yeah, Shomo No. The Shomo No never fails, John, and it sounds conspicuously like what you're describing here. I digress.
It's funny. I gotta figure out a way to work that in, man.
You really need to put it in the book.
I really gotta figure out a way to work that in.
Yeah.
It's like, as I was saying, It's like if you have a girlfriend and you decide to go out and
There you go. Work
get
on it.
another girlfriend, and
You're
then what
doing it.
happens is you end up with no girlfriend.
You're
It's
doing
like
it, John.
the for show mo no.
There you go. There you go. Well done, John. Good usage. I'm proud of you, buddy.
Oh my
Uh,
god, that's funny.
you're getting better every day, John. It's
Okay,
exponential now.
so there was this interviewer. There was this interviewer who asked Herb Kelleher, who's the founder, who was the founder and CEO of Southwest Airlines, and he asked them how they get their employees, flight attendants, stuff like that, how he gets them to smile all the time. And the interviewer was like hoping to get some insight into the staff's training process, like how do you like train these people, that kind of thing. And Kelleher responded, "It's easy. We just hire people who smile all the time."
Same with Chick-fil-A.
Chick-fil-A is the same way, except I can't use a Chick-fil-A example in a book, unfortunately.
Oh.
This story, actually, I spent a lot of time trying to research the story, and it seems to have originated from Southwest, and then it probably mistakenly has now been assigned to a whole bunch of people, because I found articles on the web that talk about how it was Howard Marks, the CEO of Starbucks, a head manager at Starbucks. I found like a whole bunch of different companies that there was some stuff with Chuck Higgins, who used to be for See's Candies, the CEO. And I feel like it's just like a good story that happened once with a CEO, and then everybody just kind of made it up, and now the internet has taken it. As far as I could tell, it started with Southwest and may not actually have happened with the other ones. Or it might just have happened independently.
They ain't
Different
Starbucks.
times.
I've been in Starbucks.
Well, they do, but did the CEO say it? Like, I just read the entire CEO's autobiography called Onward. Like, I just finished it like 2 days ago. I picked it up at the library, and that story is not in there. I can promise you. So it's not that he didn't say it in an interview somewhere, but it ain't in his autobiography.
Oh my god.
But regardless, the idea is still there. It makes perfect sense. If you want people who smile, it's way easier to convince somebody who already smiles to smile than it is to try to train somebody who isn't a smiley person to smile a bit more, right? And the idea behind that is intelligent people have a tendency to overcomplicate things. Whether it's hiring or marketing, hard problems in business can almost always be avoided. But I start this section, so this is actually the start of the section, and I'm not sure if it's going to end up this way, but I had to start, I really felt like I had to start this section with a corollary. Because, well, anyway, let me tell the corollary first, and then you guys can see where I'm going with. Taking the easy route isn't as straightforward as it seems. For example, there's a joke in the fitness industry that most fit people don't belong in the gym. It's like, yeah, I walked into the gym, I see all these fit people. It's like, you're done. Go home. What are you doing here? But that's not how it goes, of course, right? The reality is the opposite. Already in shape people go to the gym the most. Fit people spend the most money on fitness. Already fit people spend more on instruction, on supplements, and books about fitness, despite not really needing it. And so if you actually want to sell anything related to fitness, you'll have more financial success targeting people already in shape than inactive populations. But there's different types of professional success. If you work in fitness, you may decide that even though it'll be harder to build a business, it'll be more personally rewarding to help inactive or overweight people. And so I wanted to start with this corollary because I don't think that there's necessarily a right or wrong. There is, however, harder and easier. And understanding the difference between those is vital. You might still decide to tackle harder problems for reasons that can be really noble. And a lot of people do. Do you guys think I should start with that? Is that an important part to put in?
It's important to put in. I don't know about at the beginning. I have to see the rest, but it's important to talk about.
and I have no context. I won't know if it's a good first note until I hear the last note.
Yeah. Well, we're not going to get through the whole chapter, and the whole chapter doesn't really fit with like the theme of FOMO, so we won't get through the whole chapter. This is actually has come out now as the second longest. It's just over 5,500 words, which is too long to read when you have a throat that you feel like coughing every time you speak. I want to talk about the word lazy. The word lazy has a negative connotation, and I think that it needs a rebrand.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to hereby enthusiastically admit that I am both simultaneously ambitious and lazy. Because it's taken me a really long time to accept this. Counterintuitively, it often feels easier in the short term to make things difficult. I think about an example from my life all the time. When I used to have an assistant and VAs and all that kind of stuff, it was way easier for me in the short term to be like, screw it, I'm going to do it myself. I'm going to fix this code. I'm going to do this edit or whatever it is myself. It's actually easier in the short term to do that than to instruct somebody else to do that and build some sort of instruction so that that's now off your plate forever, so that somebody else, or doesn't have to be a human, some sort of automation or process or whatever it is, can pick up that thing and do it. There's also the problems of ego, of greed, of envy, of fear, of mindless imitation of other people that can lead us astray. It can make us think that we should be doing things that we're not. We've been indoctrinated to assume that it has to be hard if it's going to work, and it doesn't. When things feel hard at work, I don't anymore put my head down and persevere. Instead, I assess my goal and I question whether there's an easier way to achieve it. And so there's a couple times that I quote Buffett and Munger here, just because they've been one of the most like outspoken people about this idea of easy. And when asked about the secret to success, their like number one secret to success, one of the things that Buffett said is that Charlie Munger and I have not learned how to solve difficult business problems. What we've learned is to avoid them. And then Charlie Munger jumped in and he added, in both business and investing, it's usually far more profitable to simply stick with the easy and the obvious than it is to resolve the difficult. I don't think there's anything wrong with looking for easy problems to solve. And one of the ways to do this is to try really hard to be consistently not stupid. Reliable and consistent success isn't the result of brilliance. It happens by avoiding stupidity. It's helpful to admit that we're actually amateurs in whatever we do. And when you admit that you're an amateur, you don't deceive yourself into thinking that you can somehow outsmart the competition. Because there's no information advantage anymore. There's nothing that you know that they don't. It doesn't exist. Maybe it did at one point. I think back to there's a book that I read a long time ago by Cavill, I think his name was. It was a book called Tai-Pen. It was like this epic. It was like 700, 800 word book, and it was historical fiction, which is a fictional story in a non-fiction historical context, which is a really fun way to learn about history because it's like a good story, but then you learn about the history. And this was about the settlement of Hong Kong. And the settlement of Hong Kong, of course, was settled by traders. And there was a huge information advantage where if they could get the prices in Europe, in England, earlier, even by like 15 or 20 minutes, they could make tremendous amounts of money. And that doesn't exist anymore. So they would send their fastest ships way ahead to try to get the reports from their ships way out in the ocean to come back to Hong Kong first, so that they could have that information advantage. That doesn't exist anymore. It's a level playing field. And taking undue risk because we feel we know something others don't, I think is a mistake. It's helpful to remember that only one of us can be the best in the field at what we do. And it's also helpful to remember that the more high level our knowledge becomes on a subject matter, the more specific and nuanced it becomes. Areas of expertise constrict as knowledge progresses. And so there's a point of diminishing returns when you become an expert in something. Somebody who is in academia and like pushing like humans' collective knowledge forward on a topic, it's like a tiny little part and aspect of that topic that this person is pushing knowledge forward on. They're not the best at all the necessary skills to succeed in that field. What they are is they're the best at this like tiny little, probably obscure point. There was a book by David Epstein. It was called Range. Have you guys read this one? Range: Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World.
Mm-hmm.
Amber, you read it?
I haven't read it, but of course it's on my list.
It's on this. Well, you don't need to read it because what I'm gonna give you a thought experiment that basically sums up the entire book, and then he just tells stories for the next 300 pages.
Stories are fun.
They're good. They're good stories, and it's a really important thought experiment and a really important idea. But it does not need to be a full book. I mean, he's a good writer, but it doesn't need to be a full book. Anyway, so here's a thought experiment. Right? Let's say you have a choice. You can choose 10 individual experts who all have world-class knowledge on 10 different subjects to work together as a team. Or you can have one person who has a pretty good knowledge of 10 subjects. Who do you think is going to be more successful?
The generalist.
Ben, what do you think?
I take the experts just to be the opposite of Amber.
That's fair. Well, Amber's right. I think you probably right too. You were just
You cut out.
Amber's right. The answer is the second option, the single person. Well, useful for research that pushes humans' collective knowledge forward, this idea of diminishing returns when it comes to expertise on a subject is really important to remember. A basic product or service in a field is often enough to get great results for basically any customer. There is a point where, while I'm not saying it's a bad thing to learn more about a thing, you really don't need to learn more about a thing to achieve whatever results you need to achieve for that customer. Roy Sutherland, the vice chairman of Ogilvy UK, once said, the most interesting shit that's happening in any field is not in any field. It's actually in the interplay between different fields. It's far more useful to gain good enough knowledge in as many different disciplines as possible than to try and achieve brilliance in one area. Finding connections where others don't is incredibly valuable. If you want to learn more about this, you can go back and listen to our episode on artificial intelligence. Amber, you want to grab that episode number, whatever that was, while we're talking? Because we talk about this. No matter how advanced, single industry knowledge isn't worth anything anymore. Because any information that can be taught to a computer, even if it's the most advanced information in the world, it's lost all of its value. The computer is going to be able to learn better than you anyway. What's valuable is what's difficult or impossible to be taught or even kind of described, which is the ability to make connections from seemingly disconnected parts in order to solve new problems in easier or more effective ways. You got the episode number? Remember? Haven't found it. It's early. It's pretty early on. Okay, we'll get into.
Yeah, it's episode 7. Wait, yeah, AI will be changing how you coach is episode 17.
17. I thought you said 7 for a second. I was like, it was that early.
17.
Episode 17. Yeah. AI will be changing the way you coach, and that talks less about like how to use AI and more about redefinition of job roles and retraining and what skills are going to be really important as AI comes more and more into our lives. And I think it's already started to happen. I've seen and I've spoken to other people as well, like across social media and stuff, just this massive influx of content, just this overwhelming influx of content where it just muddies up the feed. Like there's no other way to say it. Standing out, no matter how good your information is, if it doesn't showcase like any unique approach, be it from a lot of experience or the interplay of a lot of different thought processes, so you can come across something that's like interspersed in a new way, kind of like what I'm doing here. It's like we're talking about fitness stuff to like fitness nutrition people mostly, but there's examples from all these different worlds and schools of thought. Like some book that I read about the settlement of freaking Hong Kong like 7 years ago. You know, bringing back an example, like that's kind of the way to gain an advantage over things like AI is to be interested in as many different things as possible with no idea of how those things are going to interconnect at any point in the future. It's not like I sat down and read that book and I'm like, I'm going to talk in a podcast in 7 years about shipping routes and how information is commoditized now, but at one point it wasn't. It's like, nah, but I don't know. I thought it was a pretty good example to bring up. It wasn't in the book. I just remembered it as we were talking.
So it was a fine story, John.
Yeah, thank you. You guys ever see that old viral marketing campaign for Blendtec? Will it blend?
Mm-hmm.
Never heard of
see that? You ever see it?
Yeah.
Oh my god, they were brilliant, man. So the CEO is in a lab coat, and each one of them he blends something different, and they put everything in the blender. They put in cell phones, Lego blocks, skis, marbles. They even put explosives in the blender, and it's oddly satisfying. Look it up. Will it blend? You can look up some. So years back, I actually had lunch with the guy who ran Blendtec's US department. And we were just friends of friends, and we all went to lunch together. And he told me the story about the first day on the job where he met the president of the company. And so he walked into the president's office. They were in New York City, and the president said, "Don't sit down. We're recruiting. Keep your coat on." And they left their offices. And they walked into a toy store in New York City. This store was known for hiring theater performers to dress up as characters from movies to entertain the kids as they bought toys. Now, Blendtec, the president explained, sold a lot of blenders through live demonstrations in stores like Costco. And so they needed performers to grab attention and engage a crowd. What the president said to this guy, to my friend, is teaching them about blenders is the easy part. What we need are performers who can improvise. The toy store had already found the actors and put them on display. And what the president did, as the story goes, was that he'd walk up to the best ones and he'd just hand them a business card and he'd say, "If you ever want to make real money, give me a call." And he'd walk away.
Yep.
So after we had this lunch, I actually applied this principle on a much smaller scale. For those who don't know, I mean, Amber and you guys know, but for 8 years I published a curated roundup of the best fitness content on the internet, and it became the industry standard. For a long time, we had tens of thousands of personal trainers that relied on us weekly to find the best stuff for them. And the list had to be unbiased, and it had to include only the best information. And so if the blog or podcast or social media post or whatever it was good enough to make the list, even if that thing was produced by a competitor or somebody I didn't like, by a competitor, whatever, it still went on the list. And so in order to achieve this, I hired 2 people, 1 male and 1 female, from outside of our company. And I hired them to choose its contents to just achieve this level of integrity, right? And so to find the perfect pair, I published a message on Facebook on Friday night at 7:45 p.m. that said, "If you're reading fitness blogs right now, send me a message. I want to pay you for what you're doing." Because I thought, only obsessive nerds read fitness blogs on Friday nights.
Yep.
It was the easiest job search I've ever done. Megan Calloway, who's now become kind of a star in her own right, led the list for a number of years. Danny Singer led the list for a long time. He was perfect, man. He basically managed it for us. And here's the thing. I mean, whether you're involved in hiring processes or not, it's the idea that really matters here. Conventional hiring processes with resumes and multiple interviews are really, really, really hard. Yep. For large companies, they're necessary. But for most of us, we're looking for a specific person with a very specific set of skills or natural attributes. We're me, myself, and I in this business. We need help with something. It's much easier to figure out the primary attribute that you need and just go to where that person already is. It's way easier to do that than to try to master psychological profiling and hiring and resume processes. That's an example of there's a hard way to do something, and there's an easier way. I'm going to tell the story really quick about David and his $5,000 online coaching packages. We have an episode that goes into more detail over the story, but I've moved it now into this section, and so it really fits with the narrative. So this is how to get clients. If I told you David's real name, you wouldn't be able to find him. He doesn't use social media. He doesn't run ads. He doesn't have a website. His entire web presence is an application form hosted on Google. He helps high-performing men level up mentally and physically, whatever, whole bunch of words that sound nice that mean nothing to nobody. And his packages start at $5,000. And he has so many clients that he's hired 3 assistant coaches. You want to know how he gets clients? Amber, Ren, you guys know. How does he get clients?
From the dinners, right? He pays for like goes to big dinners and stuff and meets people. Do that?
No, that was somebody different. That's the tutor. That's Raul with Sapphire Tutor.
This is the Mastermind group guy.
That's what it is.
Yeah. Well, I said that too.
Masterminds got to eat.
Masterminds.
They got to eat, right, Amber? They're having dinner.
I said the word mastermind.
That's right. And you are one.
There are meals at business masterminds, so you're not wrong.
No, I said the word.
I'm so sore, guys. Like I keep raising up my arms, and I just
stop doing that.
My lat just doesn't want to.
Why are you lifting up your arm anyway?
Put your arm down. I keep him by my side, it starts like seizing up.
Well, stop it, John. Stop everything.
Stop lifting all this heavy ass weight. You know what I'm saying? I did eat a banana today. You know why?
They're delicious.
Monkeys don't cramp.
That's the name of my next garage band. We got a treat for you tonight. Coming to the stage. Monkeys don't cramp. So the Mastermind, David, John, you're in the middle of a story here, for God's sakes.
Mastermind.
Get your shit together, Goodman. You're all over the place.
Get your shit together.
Talk about them shits.
I feel like David, too many people lately have told me to get my shit together.
Right. That's a sign, John. When it comes to me saying it, something's drastically wrong. When I say that, you've hit the fan.
Huh?
We had a funny conversation today, Amber and I. She asked me about, whether she could take, whether it was a good time for her to take like a specific week off for holiday. And Slack isn't opening up for me right now. Where is this? What did I say to you? It's like,
to tell you when it is, but you'll forget, and then ask to be reminded or something like that. Yeah, because we know you won't remember when I tell you. So
yeah, that's the kind of boss that I am. Mm-hmm. I was like, yeah, that sounds fine. I don't see any problem with it. But we both know that I'm going to forget and then be surprised when the time actually comes.
Oh my God.
So,
that's all right.
Going back to David. There's 2 hard problems to overcome if you want to get paid what you're worth as an online coach. Problem the first. Most people have never hired an online coach, let alone an expensive online coach. Mm-hmm. People who invest in their self-development invest a lot into their self-development. People who hire coaches hire a lot of coaches. And people who don't. Calvin, no thanks. I'll see you afterwards, okay? I'm recording a podcast right now.
Hi, buddy.
You can say hi really quick and then wait for mommy. Okay, really quick.
Mummy.
Hi.
Hi, bud.
Hello, Cal.
Love his little voice.
Okay, love you, buddy. So the idea behind that is that requiring a human to change their habits and belief systems in order to buy from you is playing the game on hard mode. It's just really hard to get humans to change. Like anybody who's done any coaching of anything ever, how hard is it to get somebody to change after they've bought from you?
Hmm.
If you're requiring somebody to change in order to buy from you in the first place, dem shits is damn near impossible. It's way easier to go where people already spend money on similar services and give them a reason to spend more with you. Problem the second. Other people charge less. A lot of coaches don't know what they're doing. They charge too little, they have bad business models, and they underwhelm, it says underwear, and they underwhelm their clients with bad service.
They should be charging more if it involves underwear.
Some of them do.
I
The
know.
majority of them go out of business, though. But before they do, these bad coaches saturate the market and they reset customer expectations.
Mhm.
It is really hard to compete when you're compared to people who don't know what the hell they're doing. It's way easier to find a place where you're the only option. So this idea with David, it happened by accident. His content wasn't converting to clients. He didn't want to spend more money on design and ads before he had expert help. Basically, like, he thought what everybody else thought, which was, I need to learn how to write better advertising copy. I need to learn how to create more compelling content. I need to learn how to run more effective ads, because that was all the stuff that he knew. And so he thought it was the only way to get clients. But it didn't take long for him to discover that there was a much, much better way, and lucky for him, he'd stumbled upon it. This group had an online community, 3 in-person meetups, and mindset, mental health, fitness, nutrition questions, they always came up. No matter what the topic is, from business to bartending to gardening, fitness, nutrition, mental health are hot topics, right? Business owners want to optimize their performance. Bartenders want to look good. Gardeners want to plant and weed and harvest without pain, just for a few examples. There's a need for a health and fitness expert in every community. So David started giving detailed answers in the online community. The mastermind owner was thankful. He asked David to lead a workshop. And then at the live events, David started leading morning meditations and group workouts. And members of the mastermind started hiring him. Think about it. Groups like this pre-select people who invest $10,000 plus on personal development services online. Just like our Blendtec story of going to the toy store because the toy store had already found these people who were the performers. The work's already been done. The mastermind's already found these people for you. These men have money, these men spend money, and these men are already investing in themselves to build a better future. There's this principle in physics. It's called the Occam principle. I'm sure you've heard of Occam's razor before. It's an extension of that. And the principle in physics, it refers to the path of least resistance. So in physics, any object, liquid, whatever it is always going to take the path of least resistance. That's just a physical truth, right? Changing beliefs and habits demands effort, and effort has an energetic cost. Anything that requires energy is uncomfortable. And so while embracing discomfort within reason is valuable, the reality of it is, en masse, humans follow the Occam principle and they avoid it. And so it's way easier to avoid situations where we have to change people. David didn't need ads or content or a slick sales process. Those things are freaking hard, man. By accident, admittedly, He went to where people already spend money on similar services, and he became the obvious choice for health, for fitness, and nutrition support. And then he realized what he had done, and he joined another mastermind and repeated the process, and so on and so forth. But there's an episode, if you go back here, I think, was it HOMS before when? Was that the really? Yeah, HOMS was the bad acronym.
It was Hawks.
Was it Hawks?
It was Hawks. Yes.
Okay.
And
So
now
it's
you
HOMS
realize,
now.
well, wow, yeah, so much worse than you remembered.
It's so bad. Oh, it's so bad. So, lesson 6, a full chapter, is called the Human Optimized Marketing System, HOMS. It's a full chapter.
I thought you called it hams. And that was like part of the joke. Did you change it again?
Ham is different. Ham's different.
Oh.
Ham is human avoidance marketing.
Oh, okay.
And so
Gotcha.
HOMS, if you remember, has 5 steps. And so I'll work through them all. Step number 1 is to identify what key benefit does my product or service provide. In David's example, health and fitness. Step number 2, who are my customers? David's example, wealthy men and entrepreneurs. Step 3, what do they want? Better performance, more energy to look better. Step 4, where am I going to find them? In places where they already pay a premium for personal development services, like business mastermind groups. Step number 5 is how can I talk to them today? And the answer is join a high-end mastermind and offer to lead the health and fitness workshops. I came across this crazy stat. Listen to this. I knew that airlines were a difficult business to run. I didn't realize just how difficult they were. The US airline industry serves millions of passengers a year, creates hundreds of billions of dollars in revenue. In 2023, the industry profit margin was 0.6%. And that's its first profit since 2019.
Sheesh.
Holy fuck, that's a hard business to run. Consumers usually don't care about the airline that they're on. To them, they want to sit in a chair inside of a metal box and ignore the fact that they're flying through the air incredibly while complaining that the bag of peanuts seems smaller than last time and that their chair doesn't recline enough. Perfect competition is the problem. There's too many airlines. Some enter the market with bad business models. They suffer losses and fold. Others are just remarkably efficient operators. But the resulting effect of all of this is outrageous consumer expectations and diluted ticket sales, making for an exceptionally difficult business model. You are quite literally speeding in a metal bullet at 500 miles an hour, witnessing the miracle of flight, flying above the clouds like a goddamn bird. And you're pissed off that your chair doesn't recline enough. What an example of outrageous consumer expectations. Decentralization, especially with social media, it's caused a similar effect, not as extreme, but a similar effect in a lot of industries. On one hand, the gatekeepers are gone. Anybody can say that they have a business, right? And this is great in that it's resulted in opportunities which previously didn't exist. I think that's wonderful. But it's also resulted in a lot of bad businesses with unsustainable models that don't charge enough and that offer a bad product or service. Social media and accessible paid advertising gives everybody a chance. Open competition, I think, is a net positive. But an unfortunate byproduct to a free market economy is that it becomes way too easy to do a bad job. And in every industry, a lot of people are, and they ruin it for everybody else. God, that airline example, eh? Can you imagine that?
No.
Why would anybody do that? Like,
my God,
that's awful.
Do they must have some other kind of income streams though, kind of like a loss leader. I wonder if there's got to be.
I don't think so.
Something, I don't know.
Okay, we got 2 options to end this. The first is one from like people we work with, and it's it's kind of like me reporting on a lot of conversations that I have, particularly in the hot seats, but a lot of conversations that I have with various people who work in health and fitness and what they come to me for and what they're actually asking. And the second is a somewhat vulnerable exposition of our own story, basically about how I finally figured out that there was an easier way to do what we're doing after a lot of years of doing stuff the hard way. Which do you want to
That's
go
hard to
with?
choose, man. It's a tough choice.
I mean, I can do both, but we'll run a little long.
I ain't got nowhere to be.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Just do both. Give the people what they want. They want both.
Y'all are killing me, man. When say stuff for a minute. I gotta take a drink of water.
Yeah, you got the. I think you got allergies, John. You need a little Claritin, maybe some nasal spray, and knock it right out. I had it like 2 weeks ago. I was coughing all over the place. It's awful because you can't say more than 3 words without coughing. But yeah, I would start with like some what is it? Flusican.
Sorry, we're good. So
So
there's this quote.
Felucitune.
So there's this quote that's often attributed to Einstein, but he almost certainly didn't say. That is the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. There's basically no way that he said that, but
Absolutely not.
We'll just attribute it to him anyway, because that's what people do on the internet. It's like the time Abraham Lincoln moviled at the speed of his Wi-Fi. Basically something. And so the most common example that I see of insanity is people work hard to get attention on social media and then become frustrated that it doesn't lead to paying customers. And so, well, it's not the only case. I'm going to use it as an example because it's the most common case. And I think particularly for this podcast, it's definitely the most common case. So whenever anybody asks me what to do because their content isn't converting, I know that they're hoping for some sort of an algorithm hack or some sort of a conversion secret. And so instead of trying to figure out what's going on, deconstructing one of their posts and talking about how they could do it better, because that wouldn't solve the problem, I asked them a question. And I asked them, tell me about the best customer you've ever worked with. If everybody who bought from you was like this person, you'd be ecstatic. Who was it? And then after they answer, I'll ask another question. Okay, where did this person come from? And I've gone through this process now at least 30 times. They have never answered social media. Not once. It's always been some combination of word of mouth, referral, or existing connection like a friend of a friend or kids are in school together or whatever it is. So I ask one more question at this point. I say, oh, cool. So you asked me how to help your content convert better. I'm curious. Has it ever worked? Like, has your content ever converted? And at this point, they all laugh because it never has. Different Amber, I'm talking about now. Amber built a great coaching business, coaching women on stress, sleep, and nutrition. And here's what she said to me. She said, for me, I struggle with organic growth through social media. I get a lot of referrals through current clients, but I have a hard time generating clients through Instagram. And then before I had a chance to respond, Amber added one more thing really quick. She said, I just got a random application for coaching today from somebody I've absolutely never talked to from a client referral. That's most of my business. So I asked Amber if she spoke to her client who referred her this new person to learn how the conversation came about. Like, how'd that happen? Like, you just sent me a customer. Like, who reached out to who? Did they respond to something you said? Were they introduced to you? Did you have coffee with them? How did that come up? And how did you refer them to me? Did you send them a link to an application? Did you send them my website? Did you send them my Instagram? Like, deconstruct all of it. So I asked her if she had done any of this, and she didn't. She just didn't know, right? Which is common. Like, somebody sends you a referral, you don't ask all those things. But if you want to repeat the process or improve aspects of that process, which is clearly generating you real business, that seems to me to be a good place to start, is to actually figure out what's happening with stuff that's working versus trying to get something that has literally never worked. to somehow magically begin working, right? So I want to be super clear. Social media can work. It just shouldn't be assumed to work for us. And if we have other things that are bringing us customers, doesn't it make sense to focus on that instead? Instead of being frustrated that something isn't working that's literally never worked, why not investigate what's already working and get it to work better? That's what I think, at least. 90%, this is according to Amber, 90% of Amber's business comes through referrals. Instagram has never generated her clients. And yet, she's posting on IG 5 times a week. She's stressing about matching her trending music, and she's wondering what she's missing because it's not converting. Now, if she enjoyed creating content, that'd be totally different. I'm all for people doing what they like to do, regardless of financial rewards, business rewards, whatever. So I asked her if she liked using social media, and her answer was pretty telling. She said, if I could run my business without having to utilize content or social media at all, I 100% would. Dissecting her Instagram content in an attempt to improve it wouldn't help Amber. What she needs to do is focus on what's already working and systematize and optimize that. Trying to get content to convert is hard. It's not impossible, but it is very hard. It's way easier to think back to where your best customers come from and just get better than that. There's this misconception that just because we can get customers online, that the majority of our customers should be people who are completely disconnected from us. Now, there's nothing wrong with this happening, but it does not need to happen. And the farther that somebody is from you, both physically and metaphorically, the harder it will be to generate trust and to ultimately sell to them. Humans only buy from people they don't know on the internet if they have no idea who to trust or talk to about that thing in real life. Trying to sell to people on the internet you have no connection to is playing the game of business on hard mode. That's Amber's story. Ren, say some stuff while I take a drink. Please.
Yeah,
Trying to be more polite, please.
Yeah, thank you, John. It's very considerate of you.
Very Canadian.
Yeah, uber Canadian, eh? So I love the fact that that the people that we coach often leave the doorway open to dissect their own business because they're looking at it's the same way that we look at wellness, right? People look at all these external things for how and why to support their own wellness. And you see that reflected in new, young, or maybe inexperienced business owners. Like, all the things are happening to me, but I'm as bad at processing my own victories as the average new fitness client is. They only see the problem, so they don't have the ability to double down on what actually works, because we don't think in that way. We just think in solving the next problem, not expanding off the last success. And that's problematic in business. It's problematic in wellness.
Well, we help our clients do the same thing, right? Like, I want to lose weight, but I don't want to run on a treadmill. Well, then why the fuck are you running on a treadmill? There's another way to do it. It's the same thing, right? And so content is a labor of love. You don't do that necessarily for guaranteed reward.
I often wonder why this behavior happens, because I certainly do it too.
Yeah, we all do.
It's much easier to look externally than dive in and deconstruct internally stuff we're already doing. And I feel like it's almost like a I don't even know what the word for it is. It's not a Band-Aid solution. Like, it seems to me to be way easier, or almost a way to procrastinate against doing the real work.
It's productive procrastination.
Is it? Like, is that
to a certain? It's part of it. I think the other part is the things that really move the needle don't have an obvious performance indicator beyond like just a sell, right? Like the whole James Clear, like melting the ice cube thing, right? You don't really know when it's going to melt until it melts, Right. And so, like, all of the things that often do get us clients, we don't really know that we've improved our relationship with that person, and then in 3 months they're going to buy from us, right? But with content, we have that kind of instant gratification, or bad feedback of whether it's been engaged with or not. And
a bullshit indicator still feels
it
better
is.
than
Yes.
no indicator.
Well, it's what's the phrase that they do with some kids, like bad attention is better than no attention, right? So
okay, let me move on to this last section. So this is a section, I don't know,
do it.
Well, it's basically me bitching about our business, Amber.
Well, I know it's not about me, so go ahead.
No, it's not about you. It's not about you at all. But you were uniquely positioned to be a part of the story here, so I'm curious what your response or reaction is. No, it's not. It's not about.
I know. I'm just being stupid.
I was probably fired at the time, so it's probably not about me either.
You showed up and were shown the door multiple times throughout the course of the story.
So I'm not in it. It was a Friday. We had just fired Ren. And what I learned that day was
you are in this actually. When you are in this somewhere, but I didn't read this whole chapter. There's some sections, but there's a section on referrals. And you are in that part, so I'll read you that line quick because it's your name. The easiest way to get a referral is actually on day one. As Rencel Jones, the co-host of my podcast, also called the obvious choice, says, the moment a new customer buys from you is both the first date and the honeymoon. The most excited, hopeful, bought-in, and enthusiastic they'll ever be is right when they buy.
Yay.
You're in a book.
I did it. Yay.
And it's the name your mama gave you, Rencel.
Okay. The whole name, my government. Whole government name.
Okay.
Don't die.
So here's how I start the section. I say, easy. This is the final section of this chapter of this lesson. Easy is a lesson I used to ignore. It caused me endless frustration. Now things are very different. Some background. In 2016, I released the first ever textbook and certification for online fitness trainers called the Online Trainer Academy. While it does cover coaching and client care, it's mostly a business development program and was presented as such. It sold well, but not as well as it should have. I generate tremendous interest by building up email pre-sale lists of 20,000 plus coaches, writing the top ranking articles on every major related subject, and building relationships with countless respected colleagues who promoted the course. No matter what I did, sales conversions were horrible. We spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on consultants who performed audience research, tested landing pages, and made improvements to the brand, and nothing helped. At the same time, I had friends who sold certification courses to the same audiences on nutrition, on fitness programming, and on post-pregnancy, and we'd compare notes. When it came to sales conversions, their programs crushed ours. Yes, their programs and their marketing was good, but not good enough to be converting as much better than mine as they did. It was endlessly frustrating. There's hundreds of thousands of coaches who could be having a bigger impact reducing obesity and improving the overall health and vitality of society than they're having, and all they need to do is take a few business courses. Fitness, like all industries, is a business. If you don't make enough money to feed your family, you won't last. It's as simple as that. I tried to educate my industry about the importance of gaining even the littlest business knowledge. In a decade, I hosted 5 conferences. I wrote 10 books. I published 1,500 free articles, over 10 million words. We invested over $1 million a year for 6 years straight into free content. It was so incredibly hard. And sadly, it didn't work. I don't think it had much of an impact. And now I know why. People who work in fitness like fitness. They aren't interested in business or marketing. If they were, they'd have pursued that. Us muscle monkeys like to lift stuff up and put it down, give or take 8 to 10 times. Trainers liked the idea of making more money, so they'd get on my pre-sale list, but when it came time to take action, they'd opt for more education in fitness or nutrition, not because it was what they actually needed, but because it was easier. I don't blame them. Doing unnatural stuff sucks. I hate it too. It's human nature to ignore stuff we're bad at and keep getting better at things we're already good at. Additionally, we'd be told in surveys by people and in interviews who didn't buy the Online Trainer Academy that they, quote, just signed up for software and are building their programs and will buy the course later. Now, for those of you who don't know, there's an iron rule in business. Later means never. In 2021, I finally changed tactics. Instead of trying to force my audience to change their habits, I built a tool that aligned to what they were already doing. In 2021, I fired my entire content team, and I redirected our budget to developing a software platform. Quick Coach, QC, a free programming and client management tool, was released in 2022. Its major advantage was twofold. First, I had the benefit of time and patience. After 8 years deeply embedded in the online fitness industry and as an advisor for most of the existing platforms, I gained a pretty unique view into how to build a remarkably simple and effective tool. Second, all existing platforms were built by software companies. Many of them now are operated by billion-dollar private equity or venture capital firms, and they're sold as a monthly membership. I give away Quick Coach for free, using it as a lead generator. With my books, course, and mentorship being as profitable as they are in the back end, I was able to self-fund the platform, maintain 100% ownership and control. Software sold as software by software companies are playing the software game. Quick Coach found its own parade. We're playing our own game. Fitness and nutrition coaches log in and use Quick Coach every day, which means they see our company every day with no content, no emails, no paid ads required. Inside of Quick Coach, there's a tab called Grow Your Business with information about our other offers. I'm not in a rush. Our users aren't going anywhere. By giving them software to use for their business, I'm the obvious choice when they're ready for support in other areas. Before launch, we had 8,000 registrants. A year in with zero marketing, zero staff dedicated to the project, and $0 spent in paid advertising, Quick Coach has had over 28,000 coaches register for the service. In the middle of 2023, we added a paid layer, and while most of our users are 100% free, there's enough paying users already to be profitable month after month. I tried to convince people to change for years. I spent millions of dollars. I rented out convention centers. I had a world-class content team of 9 people. No shit, Amber can corroborate this. At one point, we had on staff the previous chief of content, books editor, senior copy editor, and fitness editor from Rodale, which was men's health, women's health, prevention, etc., etc. All of those people at the same time were on staff creating free content for our audience. We produced thousands of free articles and resources, and it was hard, and it still didn't work well. Then one day I accepted an easier problem. Figure out what people are already doing and give them an option and a compelling reason to do it with us. From 2021 to 2023, the business grew 3 times in revenue and went from being break even to being much more profitable again. With no marketing costs, no marketing spend, far less work, and 1 full-time staff member. Thank you, Amber.
Mm-hmm.
Now, admittedly, developing a software platform is both expensive and hard. I'm not sharing this story encouraging you to do it. Instead, I shared this story to demonstrate that there's often an easier solution to your problem, and finding it starts with paying attention to what the humans who should be buying from you are already doing. There's a tendency to feel we need to tackle hard problems in order to succeed, and when faced with hard things, to push through and to try to overcome. Truth is, there's often a much easier problem to solve. I'm going to finish this timeless lesson about easy by circling back to one more quote from Warren Buffett. He said, "If you want to achieve a great time for swimming the 100 meters, it's a lot smarter to swim with the tide than it is to work on your stroke."
Had to think through that one, but yes.
Makes sense.
Nice. That was a good
It's
story.
A lot of pain went into that story.
Yeah.
A lot of pain and learning. It's part of the journey, right?
Yeah. Well, and it makes you appreciate it more. I mean, all the best lessons tend to be hard won. So,
Right. I had a really great, easy lesson the other day. It was so simple. I'll never forget that super easy lesson that didn't tax me in any way, cause me any problems, or change my perspective at all.
but
Said
the
no one
hard thing
ever.
though is that the sunk cost fallacy, right? Like you could recognize that, right? But when you've put years, literally years of work into it, it is so hard to let that go.
Yeah.
And so coaches really need to be thoughtful as they're taking in this lesson. Like it's okay to stop, right? So like if the content game or, something that you're currently doing isn't working, you're not quitting, you're switching gears. It's okay to let it go if it's just not working.
There's a story I love about Daniel Kahneman, who Nobel Prize winner in behavioral psychology. Basically the father of behavioral psychology. Him and his now deceased partner Amos Tversky, and he wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow. And the story goes, he wrote the book Thinking Fast and Slow, and there was a writer who was involved. It's not, he didn't sit there mashing the keys, right? And so this is a story from the writer about working with Kahneman when he was asked about what it was like working with him, and he said, "We had spent months working on a chapter, and the chapter just didn't fit in the book anymore. And I messaged Daniel about it, and I was scared to message him about it because it had been so much work, and there was so much labor and love and passion put into that section." And he got back to me within 5 minutes, and he just said, "I have no sunk costs." Mm-hmm. And that was it. The people who understand this stuff understand and continually remind themselves how damaging things like sunk cost really can be.
Nope.
Do we have to recommend another episode?
No, we did the AI one, number 17.
Okay.
Do you want to mention your shirt?
Yes. Oh, yeah. Thank you to the sponsor of our podcast, who's really going to love
your
me
one
after
shirt.
This one. Thank you to the sponsor of our podcast so much, Unbound Merino. I'm wearing their shirt right now. I worked out today, and I was wearing 100% of their clothing. I had their socks, their underwear, their athletic shorts, their athletic shirt on. It's usually just about everything that I wear. I love the company. I love the people involved in the company. They are dear friends of mine. I highly recommend you check them out. Unbound Merino. We'll have a link in the show notes. And you can use the coupon code Goodman to get 10% off your first order. If you just choose one thing to start with, I recommend starting with the t-shirt, either the crew neck or the v-neck. They are fan-freaking-tastic. Unbound. Yeah, thank you for sponsoring it. And as always, thanks for listening to the podcast. Amber, Ren, yeah, you guys are pretty cool. Thanks for being here.
Thanks.
Sweet.
Bye.
I'm finished already.